Hey everyone, this is an excerpt from the longer, over 40-minute video that I did in my studio a couple of days ago after I got back from North Carolina, just to help students figure out how to render the dark side of the face. It can be a real tricky area if you're new to this particular process, but once you learn the steps, it's incredibly simple to do. It was such a pleasure connecting with so many of you all over 2 days in the workshops in North Carolina. And we covered a lot of ground in this portrait here, the one I'm working on right now. This is where we ended up on the second day on Saturday afternoon. So everything but the forehead on that light side of the face. So I think that's a lot of progress really for one day. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to just work on the nose. And this particular pose that we started on Saturday, this piece really helped us to dive deep into rendering the light side of the face, especially the eye, the skin tone, and the lips. And as you can see, we got quite a bit done in a relatively short amount of time. And that's actually how I prefer to work. You may already know this about me, but I like to move through portraits at a fairly steady pace, not rushed, but efficient. And some artists I know love spending hundreds of hours on a single piece, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for me, what I found is I've developed a skill to work quickly with confidence and control, and I think it's worth having something like that in your creative tool belt. So when I got home, I sat down at my studio. I recorded a 40-minute follow-up video to help workshop participants just finish this shadow side of the face, the side that really trips people up a lot of times. And in this short excerpt that I'm sharing here today, I just want to walk you through some of those core ideas that I shared in the longer video. Now, obviously, we can't go over everything that I did in the longer version, but I think that this still will give you sort of a clear path forward in helping you to understand how to render the shadow side of the face. All right, so one of the questions that I get all the time is, how do I make the shadow side of the face dark without having it look muddy or dead? Now, it's a common problem, and I remember struggling with it myself when I was first learning this approach, learning this Grisaille technique. The instinct is to just reach for a black or a deep brown or a gray or something like that, thinking that, it's going to be the quickest way to create a shadow. And some instructors even teach that. But the truth is, it flattens everything. It strips away the nuances of color and the things that make the skin feel lifelike and warm. The real solution is more subtle than that. You don't jump straight from a midtone to black. You build gradually, methodically toward your darker values. So I start with a mid-range pencil like Caput Mortuum, Polychromos 169, and then I move slowly into darker and darker tones. But I stay within that darker side of the mid-range for a while. In this clip, you'll see me introducing cinnamon in Polychromos 189 before eventually layering in some of the same pencils that we used on the light side of the face. I mean, that's what we would do if we kept on going in this little demo. But that's the key, is you can use many of and the exact same pencils on both sides of the face. But what makes them read as light or dark is the base that they're sitting on and how intensely you apply them. So I can use ivory in Polychromos. I can use burnt ochre 10%. I can use Herculaneum red in Luminance. The difference is they're going on top of an already darker base. Okay, so I had to build up a little bit of this on the left side of the face there, left side of that side plane of the nose, and then reaching down all the way to the ala using even pink white here in Luminance. But keep in mind, you won't use the brightest pinks and the brightest yellows in the shadow areas. Well, not with the same intensity, I should say. But they still have a place depending on your composition. You may just apply them lighter. So as you watch this short time lapse here, I hope that it clarifies how to approach the shadows with some subtlety and some depth and realism. Now, in a moment, I'll start to use like cinnamon in Polychromos. Now, from here on out, you can start incorporating some of your darker pencils in Luminance. Think like warm earth 70%, or a rich dark red like anthraquinone carmine 580 in Luminance. and dark indigo even in some very reserved areas in Polychromos 157. Think about the structure and the depth that you're looking for, especially around the eyes and along the form shadows and the contours of the face. But I would still rely heavily on Caput Mortuum, and maybe even considering adding Caput Mortuum violets, a nice complement as well, and cinnamon again, and Polychromos, to create these soft, subtle transitions into shadows. The dark side of the face isn't always as dark as we think it is. It's all about the power of suggestion and subtlety, not saturation. So then as you move into the second eye and the mouth and along that side plane of the head, then you'll gradually deepen those dark values, but you do it selectively. So that's when you can start incorporating dark blues and reds and browns and think of them as yellows. But you do it with intention, and you'll start to see a portrait that feels dimensional and alive. And voila, you're using the same pencils that you did over there on the light side of the face, but they read as darker because you're starting out with a dark value and base layers to begin with. I hope that helps. Take care and stay sharp.